Why? Hello. Imagine running into you guys here. Thanks for taking the time to make it to this point in the PLC. As I prepared this week's PLC and I wrote those questions at the beginning that you were asked to kind of think about prior to coming to the PLC, I too started to reflect and try and think of more of the tools that we could use at our disposal when it feels like we're using everything, And I think that's one of the things that comes up a lot is what more can we do? Sometimes it feels like the only question or the only answer is we can't do anymore. We're doing as much as we can. And that might be true when we're looking at the individual, right? Like I'm thinking I've given all I can give. But what can we do as a collective? What more can we do as a collective? Or what can I add to your guys' offerings? Or what can I do for you that maybe I haven't been doing before? And I think it's important to keep the kids who are coming, who are here every day, in mind, to keep them at the forefront of our minds, because I think too often those kids that are here get placed almost on the back burner. And I think as we reflect on the challenges that the students are facing, what challenges do we have when working with these kids? I think it's important to acknowledge the challenges that we have, and that might just be our frustration that they aren't attending, the frustration that they're coming to us asking for everything at the end of the term. And that's kind of like the third question, right? How do we respond to these kids who aren't attending regularly? What's kind of that knee-jerk reaction? And I know it's especially hard because a lot of these kids have only experienced the knee-jerk reactions, the sighs, oh man, you chose to come today, we're 3 weeks in and this is the first time I see you. That's all they've experienced. And so what can we do? How can we shift that mentality, that mindset to reach these kids in a different way? That's what I'm hoping the conversations you're having in the PLC, I hope that's where it's going. Now, as I've written this, there's this book I'm reading, Tackling the Motivation Crisis. I might have mentioned it before. This book was written during the pandemic, during 2020, when everything was kind of shut down. And during 2020 school year, Mike Anderson was able to participate in a panel. And the teacher, one of his fellow teachers, her name was Maria Drakova, posed this question of what would children do if the door were open? Would they stay with us or keep doing what we are offering? Now that's in reference to the school, right? Before the pandemic, many students had this feeling or this belief of, I come to school, I do what I need to do, and that's what it is. They don't question it. And that might be a little bit not as much for our clientele, but I think some of these kids that had that belief are now our students. Mike Anderson goes on to write, in schools around the United States, teachers were suddenly struggling to get children to participate in the most basic levels of learning activities. During the COVID-19 pandemic, not only had the doors been opened, but the children were forced to walk out, and now are being encouraged to walk back in, albeit through a very different door. And many children have decided not to come back. Now, he was talking about the challenge particularly with the online learning, transitioning to online learning, and how we just didn't see some kids return to that venue. He goes on to say, of course, there were a variety of reasons some kids didn't come back. Some didn't have access to technology or a reliable internet connection. Some had to shoulder extra burdens at home as their parents' work schedules changed, while others were helping care for family members who were sick. Some were homeless and didn't have a place to do schoolwork, but many children could have come back and didn't. So why didn't they? At least in part, it seems that the schoolwork itself wasn't meaningful or interesting, and without the usual confines and incentives of school, there wasn't much motivation to keep the work, to keep doing the work. And I think that's exactly where we are, sitting here in November 2021, in the 2022 school year. We are seeing that kids' motivations have changed. They really no longer feel the obligation of school, some of them. Now what can we do with this? How does any of this make a difference? How does this help us take steps forward and kind of make progress when it seems like progress is so hard to come by? And for me, as I read this and I reflect and I think about it, it really is making me question, like, what can I do? What can I try that I haven't tried to make a difference in at least one kid's life or one family's life, right? So, I'm going to be a bit ambitious. This term, I'm asking each of us to make a goal for the term. And my goal, although it's a little daunting to me, is to make at least one phone call to every kid by the end of this term. And I did the math, and if I start tomorrow, November 17th, or today when you guys are watching this, and I make 15 calls a day to parents, I will be finished on January 12th. So, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you because you get to hold me accountable. Just like your PLC groups are going to hold you accountable for your goal this term. Now, your goal doesn't have to be as lofty as mine, but I encourage you to think outside of the box, outside of your comfort zone. Talking to parents is hard. I have to do it almost every day, but it doesn't make it any easier. But I want to connect. I want them to know that I'm here for their students. And that call, I think, will help do that. So that's my goal. So now, as your PLC, take a little bit of time, write your goal, and then share it with your group. And after that, you guys are good to go for the night. Thanks for everything you guys do. I know, especially nowadays, it's hard sometimes to get out of bed to come to school. It's hard to have fun here. It's hard to see the silver lining, I think, sometimes. But know that each of you guys make a difference in the life of our students. And that's really why we're here, and educators. So thanks, and have a great night.